Scaling the row here, just kidding, and Zon Scaling from the combat team, hitting you guys with the upcoming racial balance changes for update 21. Alright, now this is actually going to be one of the most important patches for not just us as players, but as consumers, because let's be real, guys. There's no way it's a coincidence that they released these sneak peek notes last night out of nowhere at the same time as, you know, the sales going on with the race change tokens on the Crown Store. Alright, it's no coincidence. Let's just accept that as fact that they want to make money off of us. But hear me out, do not buy those race change tokens yet, or if you did buy them already, don't race change anything yet based off of these notes, because these notes might not be final. There might be, according to my hunches, more changes related to these race changes, so keep those race change tokens right now. Wait until the PTS patch notes and so on, and just keep an eye on the situation. And today, together in this video, we are going to be reviewing these patch notes. And as I primarily PvE, I will not be looking at this in a frame of PvP sort of mind for the most part. I'll be looking at this from a PvE perspective. Now, when I saw Zos Gilliam, the name on the forum post, I was like, alright, this is either going to be incredibly terrible that Roble was like, alright Gilliam, you're the new intern, it's your turn to be the sacrificial goat to be torn apart by the forum warriors, alright? So actually the first part of the post is actually pretty good, because they actually give reasons, and these are actual valid reasons that I really can't argue with. And I'm very skeptical of Zos, and even I can't really argue with these reasons, and these are actual valid reasons to why they should address race balance, race passives, because, you know, it's been a wild ride. All right, these reasons are actually pretty valid. I have no complaints about them, and they have their goals. They're like, all right, we want to make these racial passes more lord friendly. We want to, you know, make sure they're accurate, cool. They want to buff certain racial passes, which I'm fine with, whatever. But let's actually get to the specific changes that they made, so we can like see where they fucked up and where they didn't fuck up.
And you witnessed the biggest fuck up of his career.
The bad high elf, we're not like, no changes to the RP passive, whatever. I guess we'll just ignore the first thing here. I don't think any of the RP passives change for any of the race. Spell charge, instead of 9% Magicka recovery, we are gonna have a restoration of almost 600 Magicka or stamina based on whichever is higher after activating a class ability. This occurs once every 6 seconds. In PvE, you are pretty much guaranteed to hit a class ability once every 6 seconds. So this is a pretty nice mini Magicka version of Adrenaline Rush from the Redguard passive. It's a nice way to sustain, and you also get reduction of damage taken by 5% while you are using an ability with a cast or channel terms. And boom, right there with spell charge, we are already seeing a buff to Magwarden, Magplar, and Magsorc. This will incredibly help incredibly with the Magsorc sustain spell recharge, and also Magplar sustain, I suppose, but their sustain is actually pretty decent right now. Actually, and I guess you do get the 5% damage reduction when you're casting beam or shocks or something. And while it looks underwhelming on paper, again, we have to test on the PTS or something, or see when it hits live to see, you know, if this is actually pretty good. Also, channel acceleration comes to mind when you consider, you know, abilities with cast time. Thank God that they, you know, didn't stick with cast time shields. So, Gift of Magnus, 10% max Magicka. Instead of 10% max Magicka, we actually get a flat bonus of 2000 max Magicka. Now, this is a slight nerf, but it's not a huge nerf. Basically, mathematically speaking, say you are a high elf Magicka sorcerer with about 44 or 45,000 max Magicka. If these changes stay, you're gonna have 1,000, or at most, it's probably gonna be 1,000 lost max Magicka. So it's not a big hit. And Elemental Talon, 4% fire, shock, and ice damage has been changed to spell damage of a value of 258. And this is actually one of the best changes they probably have made in terms of the racial bonuses, because 58 spell damage is huge. It's fucking huge. I mean, it's better than whatever fuck this was, alright? You are essentially losing maybe 1,000 max Magicka, or around there, or a little more maybe, in exchange for 2 spell damage glyphs, essentially. Like 258 spell damage, plus whatever you have left after these notes. If these notes are final, that's a buff. Alright, so High Elf, the sustain change, and the spell damage bonus, it's a buff. It's a huge buff. I was actually pretty impressed initially with the spell damage change, for sure. And we have to take into account, guys, spell damage does not just affect your abilities, your damage of your abilities. It also affects the damage of your light attacks. Since post Somerset patch, your light attack damage scales off better with the spell damage and max Magicka ratio. The Argonian, now I saw a lot of this, a lot of people, declaring Argonian was dead, or that they were nerfed last night in guild chat. Changed to the RP passive. Alright, and instead of gaining 3% max Magicka and restoring 4,600 of the stats when you drink a potion, again, slight nerf to your max stat, but also they also got a 1,000 value nerf to the resourceful passive, which honestly, okay, like, people can deal with it. I can deal with it. It's whatever. The Argonian Resistance, 9% max health and 1485 poison and disease resistance, has been changed to 1000 health. Again, a slight nerf, but not a big deal, numerically speaking. And your disease resistance by 2310. So you are now missing the poison resistance, and instead you almost have more disease resistance. I guess this is more for PvP. Instead of 5% healing done received, you increase your healing done by 4%. And note that they removed the received part from the change. Basically, you need to put it into CP to get your healing received. This means whatever healing you do, or whatever other people heal you for, you won't get any more of the 5% healing received bonus. And this is a sneaky nerf to the Argonian. Oh, what else? So again, RP passive, no changes. Instead of 21% stam recovery, increases your stam recovery by 258. It's better stat, I suppose, in a way. Huge one. Resist affliction, 6% max stamina, and poison disease resistance. And again, instead of disease resistance for Argonians, we have the flip side for poison resistance by 2310. And of course, max stam by 2000. Actually, I believe, numbers wise, this actually is the only race that got a buff to the max stat pool with the flat bonus. I don't think, I'm pretty sure this is more than what they currently have right now. Reduces detection radius by 3 meters and increases damage done in stealth by 10%. Has been changed to no stealth damage done by 10%. Instead, increasing your stealth detection radius by 3 meters, and after you use dodge roll, you gain 20% movement speed for 3 seconds. It's like Lawrence, the lore master, put on his, like, uniform, his lore master uniform, walked into the combat team's room and was like, "Hey, did you guys know that wood elves eat their own people?" And then Gilliam and fucking Rubble were like, "Oh man, they're assholes. Let's not give them anything this patch." Like, these changes so far, negatively and positively, whatever speaking, is like, not like, it's just so underwhelming. It's so underwhelming compared to the High Elf. Already, like, what the fuck? I mean, they had an opportunity here to actually kind of maybe raise Wood Elf, be where the races are on paper right now, but they're just like whatever, you know, cool. We don't really like wood elves, after all. Now, Breton, the changes of Breton are fucking amazing. All right, so again, no changes to the RP passive. The Gift of Magnus, 10% max Magicka. Same thing like for the High Elves. It's a slight nerf to their max Magicka pool, but not a huge nerf, difference of 1000 Magicka or something like that. And spell resistance, instead of this high ass spell resistance, they are gonna actually only get this much spell resistance, which is about almost 4% mitigation for against spell damage, magic based damage. And they are also gonna get a fucking free enchantment, dude. They're gonna get a free enchantment. Like, what the fuck? What? It's okay. I mean, honestly, this is a fair. I mean, this is a great deal for Bretons. You get a free Magicka recovery enchantment, essentially. Like, what the fuck? Alright, Magicka Mastery, instead of 3% cost reduction for your Magicka abilities, it's 7%. 7%. What the fuck? It's like, I don't know. It's really amazing. It's really amazing. I mean, I can see I mean, this could be the de facto best healer race. All right, I mean, you could still heal on the High Elf if they do these changes. I mean, your spell damage will still affect your healing, and you'll probably have your sustain with your base Magicka recovery and the new spell charge. Breton, if you just want to strictly go healing and you don't want to damage on the side, like say in a trial or something for your team, Breton is like amazing. Like, they just buffed the fuck out of Breton. Like, wow. No comment. Elf. Now, a lot of people are saying this makes no fucking sense. This race makes no sense anymore. Or sorry, or let's go over why it doesn't make any fucking sense anymore. First, passive, no changes. All right. And instead of 6% max stam and Magicka, we're just gonna get again another flat bonus of 1250. Again, it's like no big deal in terms of raw stats for now. And instead of 3% max Magicka and 2079 flame resistance, increase your max health. Okay, sure. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but why not? And your flame resistance by 2310. I think this was the most controversial lore-wise, as Agility put it, non-canonical. Alright, so instead of 7% flame damage and whatever the fuck this change was back in the day, I don't think they should have added this. Increase your weapon and spell damage by 258. Now, game stat-wise, this weapon and spell damage by 258 is a lot better than the elemental percentage buff. As I said, for the High Elf, it's probably one of the best changes in these notes, that they are replacing the elemental with raw spell damage. So definitely a good change for a Dark Elf, but in comparison to the High Elf on paper, it's nowhere close in terms of sustain. I mean, it's got a lower mag pool than the High Elf. I mean, I don't see any reason myself to pick a Dark Elf over a High Elf right now. You know, like, I would even probably just pick a Breton over a Dark Elf for a DPS class at this point. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Could have done something with the flame damage. After all, maybe they could have kept some of this as a nod to the lore that Dunmer have a special affinity for fire, but kind of dropped the ball on Dunmer a bit. So want you to kind of go a little hybrid with the Dark Elf race, which I don't know, guys. I don't know. I really don't know. Let's see what the developer comment said. Basically gave us a lore summary. Fulfill any role, and I think they misspelled fulfill. That's cool. I think they should probably review Dark Elf. very underwhelming, and it feels like all of the sudden, reading through these patch notes, like each race is obviously focused on one thing. Like Argonian's a healer, High Elf is a DPS, Wood Elf is fucking roleplay, I guess, I don't know at this point. Breton is a healer, Dark Elf is like, alright guys, here's a hybrid race. I don't know, it's kind of weird. So Imperial. Now, so 12% max health increases your max health by 2,000. Bit of a slight nerf here to the max stats, and the Imperial's best perks, the best perks of being an Imperial are your max stats. They are much better than the Nord and the other races that are viable for tanking, because honestly, just because of their max stats. Red Diamond never really was a factor in people choosing Imperial over Orc or Nord. Our max stats have taken a slight hit. 10% chance on melee attack to heal for 6% of your max health. When you deal direct damage, you have a 15% chance to heal for 1750. On one hand, they increased the proc chance, which is nice, I guess. But on the other hand, they reduce the amount of what you heal for, because the higher health you have, the more you heal for it. Fortunately, 1750 D flat heal gain is a nerf to Red Diamond, which makes no sense to me, because Red Diamond was shit already, but okay, why not? And here with the last bit of reduction of the cost of your block and bash abilities by 5%. As we'll see later on, this is pretty shitty. I mean, I don't know, like, most PvE tanks either have all sturdy on their gear pieces, or like 3 infused and the rest sturdy on their gear pieces. We don't need 5% more block or bash cost reduction. We don't need it. We have enchantments for that too. We don't need it. Most trials, you don't even have to block shit. Seems like they're going against an earlier vision of no perma blocking either. Like, you're gonna give us more block cost reduction and you don't want us perma block? Like, what's going on, dude? Come on, Gillian. Dude, come on, what's going on? Alright, I kind of want to see it. Alright, again, their developer comments are just basically explanations of their lore. Yeah, this is highlighted with their powerful bonuses to Constitution and the ability to push back when under pressure. I'm gonna just start bashing when I'm like 10% health, dude. Like, alright, so Khajiit. Now, this is actually a huge race change to the Khajiit, so let's pay careful attention here. Nimble, instead of 20% health recovery, we get 100 health recovery, which is whatever. I guess it does nerf some builds. Your stamina magic recovery is increased by 75. I don't know, like, I'm pretty sure this is good. I'm gonna play Magicka classes on the Khajiit, but Stam recovery wise, I'm pretty sure this was a slight hit. Now, stealthy, reduction of detection radius by 3 meters, so basically we don't have any of this. We don't have any more stealth damage bonus. We have Lunar Blessings. Increases your max health, Magicka, and stamina by 750. That's like a fucking prismatic enchantment. Okay, so they obviously are very serious about wanting each race to maybe sort of tank or heal. So I guess this is one of the attempts to address that. Carnage. Instead of 8% weapon crit, you get a spell crit as well by 8%. Also reduces your detection radius, so just move that there. So this is the biggest change for Khajiit. You now have a chance to play Magicka classes on the Khajiit and actually be decent. I won't be laughing at Khajiit Magsorc pets anymore, I guess, or Khajiit Magblades anymore, because this is actually a huge change, and this might actually propel Khajiit to a top race for Magicka DPS in PvE. So more on this later. I think we have to test this more on the PTS. Nord. Okay, this is where I'm starting to have a few issues. Like, they sort of dropped the ball on this one. So, Stalwart, 6% max stam and 20% health recovery. Increases your max stam by 1500. Okay, so again, whatever. When you take damage, you gain 5 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. Motherfucker, like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, alright, yeah, they got max stam, no changes to RP stuff. 5 ultimate. When you take damage, you get 5 ultimate, 5 ultimate, 5 ultimate. Like, 14, alright? Every 6 seconds, and that's a 6% proc chance. That's blood spawn. That's a monster set. All right, you have to equip a fucking set to get that much ultimate in 6 seconds, but it's a 6% chance. And this effect for the Nord, when you take damage, it's a guaranteed chance once every 10 seconds. That's like, I would say that's better than blood spawn. I would say instead of wearing blood spawn, I'll wear something else. Like, honestly, there aren't that many instances anymore where I do use Bloodspawn as a tank for trials anymore. Take into consideration the uptime for Bloodspawn, say on the Warrior and Hellra, and you compare this to this out of nowhere fucking ulti gain for Nord. Nord is now much more active than Imperial, and this kind of pisses me off personally because I race changed my Nord to Imperial like 2 years ago or something. But wow, like, that's huge. Like, this is huge. I don't know about this. Like, I think they're gonna nerf this before it goes live. I don't know about this. I really don't know about this. Like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? Like, where in lore does it say Nords have 5 ultimate gain every time they take damage every 10 seconds? I don't know, dude. Move on, because this is very surprising to me. 9% max health and 2079 cold resistance. Health by 1000 and your cold resistance by 2310. Again, a slight nerf to the max health bonus, but whatever. And 6% damage reduction. This was actually a pain point for people who played Nord tanks because rugged was shit. It really didn't do anything to reduce any damage at all. Once you put it in the formula of taking damage. So I'm glad that they're changing this, but what the fuck is this? You almost a major ward and major resolve. Alright, like, what? Where did this come from, dude? Like, come on, dude. What? Imperial, alright? It's already better. Like, there's no reason to buy Imperial in my opinion. Alright, like, sure, you get the max stats, sure, from Imperial, but the max stats took a slight hit. Also, we don't need 5% block cost reduction for Imperial. As a PvE tank, if these changes stay, I would race change back to Nord on my tank. Like, that's how good the mitigation is. That's how good the ult gain is. Honestly, like, it's pretty amazing. Nord, Altmer, and Khajiit seem very strong right now so far. Alright, guys. And now let's move on to the orc. Now, this is where things get interesting. Where people will start playing around a lot more with their builds and actually trying to figure out what's best. So, let's look at it. Instead of 6% max health and stamina, we get a base flat bonus of 500 for each of the stat pools. And instead of health recovery and healing received, thank God they removed health recovery even from the Khajiit, even from the Nord. Health recovery is kind of useless unless you're running a health recovery build, whatever. But anyway, healing received by 4%. When you deal damage with a weapon ability, you restore 380 health and stamina, and this occurs once every 4 seconds. This is a huge buff. Huge buff. I mean, you keep the healing received. The DPS, or DPS, like, imagine this. Imagine, take me to your fantasy land for a second. Imagine you are on an orc Stam Sorc DPS, alright? Fang Rush has taken over the internet, alright? You get your healing received, you get your sustain buff. This is the biggest, like, because if you can sustain on an orc, alright, because in the next passive, here we see they increase the weapon damage by 258, alright, compare that to Dunmer, which has the same exact passive. Orc is better. Like, Orc, like, this is based, all the race changes we're reading so far is just pushing Dunmer further and further back in the pack, which is fucking hilarious. But this is a pretty good change for the orc. Keep your healing received, and that this is huge in some trials, like Cloud Rest, I guess, if you want to get Stam DPS and Cloud Rest, but this is huge in trials like Sanctum Ophidia. The extra healing received is no joke, especially from a healer point of view. You get sustain back every time you damage something with a weapon ability. Like that's huge. 12% sprint cost reduction still, and we still have our movement speed when we're sprinting by 10%. You know how like Orc might actually be one of the best Stam DPS races for trials, especially for endgame guilds. But we'll see once we hit the PTS. I want to see what the developer comment is. So they gave us some lore reasons, and they are going to dial back on their defensive power. Whoa. What defensive power? I feel like, alright, we're going to give them more damage, we're going to give them more sustain, but we want to kind of cut down their defensive power. Where the fuck was the defensive power in the first place? Like, what the fuck? Like, what, 20, you consider 20% health recovery as defensive power? Alright, well, fair trade, bro. Like, all the orc players are going like, whew, yeah, you know, we dodged the bullet on that one, guys. Alright, so anyway, Redguard. Redguard is one of the most played races, alright, in the Elder Scrolls Online. As a Stam DPS, like, it is the de facto best Stam DPS over Khajiit even right now because of their amazing ability to sustain. And people have been complaining about how unfair it is to have so much sustain for one race and not for the other races. So I think ZeniMax listened and they were like, alright, let's dial it up. Alright, so they get, instead of 9% Stam recovery, you get a weapon ability cost reduction by 8%. 8%. They were like, alright, recovery, guys. You know, we're gonna just reduce the cost of all your weapon abilities, including ultimates. This includes ultimates. Rend, the Ballista, what the fuck ever you want to use as a weapon of ultimate. 8% cost reduction. And this is Flying Dagger, 8% cost reduction. This is Steel Tornado cost reduction. This is Blade Cloak. This is Poison Injection, Endless Hail. The sustain is incredible now on Redguard. It's insane. Like they were like, alright, Redguard is sustaining very well. What can we do? Let's give them more sustain. Alright, that's their answer, guys. And again, a slight nerf to the max stat pool, whatever, we'll just ignore this from now on. Rush, when you deal damage with a melee attack, you restore 792 stamina. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. That has been changed to 950 stamina. What the fuck? So, Redguard is master of sustain. Basically, so far, every race change is actually good, in my opinion. I mean, some of you won't agree, but I think every race change is pretty good. Argonian, for the most part, saw more nerfs than others. And Dark Elf feel very underwhelming. They should probably review Dark Elf and Wood Elf. But so far, every race change has been good. Imperial kind of got shafted too. I mean, compared to the Nord, Imperials got shafted. But other than those four, I think every race is pretty good, pretty viable, even for endgame PvE now. We're going to be probably seeing a lot of crazy shit in these coming months. We're probably going to see like Orc Stamblade or Khajiit Mag DK, Khajiit Magsorc or something, or Khajiit Magblade or something like that. I mean, I think people have been already joking about Nord healers. A lot of crazy shit. And what I said earlier at the start of the video, you guys want to save on to those race change tokens right now. Again, these aren't really final yet. Hopefully these are not final, because there's a few issues with this. So they try to address the lore, they try to address the balance, the gameplay balance changes, but all they did, while trying to keep each race unique, while at the same time making them better for specific roles, is essentially they elevated all these races and, you know, downgraded some of these races, and they didn't really fix it. They didn't really fix the core issues. You're still gonna have the best races for the best for their certain roles. Like, I can already tell just by looking at this on paper, High Elf will probably be the go-to race for Magicka DPS over Breton and Dunmer, most likely. Wise, it's just gonna shift from Imperial to Nord. I mean, there's no real comparison there in my opinion, despite the max stats. So DPS wise, like Stam DPS wise, it's pretty clear that most likely Orc or Redguard will probably be the best races. I'm personally leaning more towards Orc if you can sustain. Now you have to take into consideration if we can sustain on our current setups, on our current damage setups with some of these races like Khajiit. If we can somehow sustain on Khajiit, and they kept their they have a max health bonus. So thinking outside of the box for a moment here, if you put a recovery food on as a Khajiit and you're at where the DPS health should be, and you can sustain with that recovery food, Khajiit will probably be better than Redguard. Khajiit will probably be better than Orc. If you can sustain on the Orc, which you most likely will, and you have this weapon damage, this free weapon damage by 258, it'll probably be better than Redguard. Like, there's a lot of crazy shit happening here, guys. Crazy shit happening here that I just can't really quite believe that Zos would just do this and leave it alone. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of class changes too. I think we're going to see changes to certain class skill lanes, class abilities, class passes possibly, because this, changing the race passes to all this, affect classes. And I think if they don't look at the classes, and I'm sure they will, I think the race changes will come out with some class changes. If they don't, they're pretty fucking competent, but I think they will. So again, I would save onto those race change tokens until we confirm that either that they are going to change some of these class passes and class skills along with these race changes. And on the live stream, Rich Lambert, the creative director, kept hinting throughout the stream whenever the question of race passes and class compatibility with the Necromancer was brought up. He kept hinting that they were working on it, right? So I'm inclined to believe that there are more changes coming, and this is like the beginning. This is like the tip of the iceberg right now. So I will hold judgment until they finalize these changes and reveal to us more information. On a final note, I think it'd be more than fair for ZeniMax to provide players that have grinded or spent a lot of money into their characters. It'd be more than fair for them to provide more race change tokens, like complimentary ones instead of just one. Because I feel like even with the limited amount of information we have, without knowing about future changes for classes, we don't know how this is going to affect most of our characters, honestly. So I think it'd be more than fair for them to provide more race change tokens, honestly. But they are a business, they are a company first and foremost, so they are kind of want to make more money off of this, off of these changes. But you know, it's kind of fucked up. It's kind of fucked up. So I mean, if they're willing, I think people should ask them for more race change tokens. But again, I don't think it's going to be a guaranteed thing.